Very good morning, students. And once again, you all are welcome for the digital learning classroom for Science and Technology Part 2. Students, in the last video lecture, we had started with the lesson number 2, Life Processes in Living Organisms, Part 1. And today we are going to continue with the lesson. So, this is the aerobic respiration, in which the glucose molecule is completely oxidized and carbon dioxide, water and energy in the form of ATP is produced. This I had explained you in the last lecture, and today we are going to start with the anaerobic respiration in living organisms or the cell. This anaerobic respiration takes place in the absence of oxygen, and here the glucose is incompletely oxidized and less amount of energy is obtained in the anaerobic respiration. And the pyruvic acid, which is produced in glycolysis, it is converted into other organic acids, or it converts into alcohol with the help of certain enzymes. And here this process is called as fermentation. So this is all about anaerobic respiration, and these are the various steps in the process of anaerobic respiration. Now our body gets energy from the different food components like carbohydrates, proteins and fats. Carbohydrates, if are excess in the body, they are stored in the liver and also in the muscles. In the muscles, they are stored in the form of glycogen. Proteins are the macromolecules which are formed together from many amino acids. The proteins which we get from the animals are called as the first class proteins, and from 1 gram of protein we get 4 kilocalories of energy. Now amino acids, they are obtained from the proteins after the digestion. In our lower classes, we had studied about the conversion of complex insoluble substances into simple soluble substances. So, proteins are converted into amino acids which are simple and soluble, and these amino acids, they are absorbed in the body and then they are transported to each and every cell through the liquid which is called as the blood. From these amino acids, the organs and the cells, they produce various proteins which are necessary for the whole body. Now, the different amino acids and proteins which are obtained is shown in the figure. The skin contains melanin and keratin. They are also produced from the amino acids. The bones contain osine. Cells, they contain various proteins of cell membrane and various enzymes. Pancreas has insulin and trypsin. Pituitary gland secretes various hormones. Muscles, they have actin and myosin flexible proteins. Blood has hemoglobin and the antibodies. So, these are all obtained from the amino acids. Now, from where do we obtain the lipids? Now, lipids are actually digested and they are converted into fatty acids and alcohol. There is a specific bond, chemical bond between the fatty acids and the alcohol. Now these fatty acids, they are absorbed and they are distributed all over the body. And what are the functions of these lipids? These lipids, they help in the production of the hormones like progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, aldosterone, and they are also used for covering the axons of the nerve cells or the neurons. And how much amount of energy do we get from 1 gram of lipids? From 1 gram of lipid, we get 9 kilocalorie of energy. And like carbohydrates, excess amount of carbohydrates are stored in the liver and muscles. Similarly, this excess amount of lipids are stored in the adipose connective tissue. Then there are vitamins present in our diet. This we had studied in detail in the lower classes. Just to revise, there are two types of vitamins, fat soluble vitamins and water soluble vitamins. Fat soluble vitamins can be stored inside our body, but water soluble vitamins cannot be stored inside our body. We have to consume them on daily basis. Fat soluble vitamins are A, D, E and K, and water soluble vitamins are glycolysis. The FADH2 and NADH2 are produced. They both are produced in glycolysis as well as in the tricarboxylic acid cycle, that is Krebs cycle. Okay, so these two, FADH2 and NADH2, they are necessary for the production of riboflavin, that is vitamin B2, and nicotinamide, that is B5. So this is the importance of vitamins which are present in our diet. The next important constituent in our diet is water. Students, do you know how much amount of our body is nothing but water? It is around 70% of our body is water, and thus each cell, it contains 70% of water by weight. You know, our blood plasma is also 90% of water. If dehydration takes place or the amount of water becomes less in our body, the whole function of our body is disturbed. So, water plays a very, very essential role in our body. Now, besides carbohydrates, proteins, fats, lipids, water, one of the most important nutrient is fiber. Fiber also plays a very important role in our body. Actually, the fiber cannot be digested. We cannot digest the fibers, but they help in the process of digestion as well as egestion of the undigested substances. You know, where is fiber present? Fiber is present in the leafy vegetables, fruits, cereals. Mainly we can say in the raw vegetables and fruits, a large amount of fibers are present. And though it is not digested in our body, it is very, very important for the excretion of the undigested substances from our body. That is excretion. So, the fibers play a very, very important role in the excretion process. The next very important topic is cell division. Cell division is a very, very essential life process, and it is a very important characteristic, very important property of all the cells and thus all the living organisms. Now, due to this property of the cell that it can divide and form new cells, the new organisms are formed from the existing ones, and from a single celled multicellular organisms grow up and the huge organisms are made. Now there are two types of cell division, mitosis and meiosis. Again, this is not a new topic. This we had studied in our lower classes, that there are two types of cell division, mitosis and meiosis. On the left hand side of the slide, you can see the different phases, different steps in the process of the cell division. And as you can see in the picture, one cell divides into two, right? Now, these two types of cell divisions, mitosis and meiosis, are very much different from each other. Mitosis takes place in the somatic cells and in the stem cells. Now, about the stem cells, we had studied in detail, right? Their sources, their uses, and the meiosis takes place only in the germ cells or the sex cells. Now students, the major difference between the mitosis and meiosis is, yes, can anyone recall? Yes, mitosis, the number of chromosomes remains the same, whereas in meiosis, the number of chromosomes becomes half. Now, on the basis of this difference, you can understand why the mitosis takes place in the somatic cells and the stem cells, whereas meiosis takes place in the germ cells or the sex cells, right? Now, mitosis, as I said, the number of chromosomes remains the same, but in meiosis, the number of chromosomes becomes half, right? Now, we had studied about fertilization. In fertilization, the male and female gamete, they unite together and they form the zygote, right? Now, this zygote is diploid, but the male and female gamete, they are haploid. That means they are having half the number of chromosomes. Now, this half the number of chromosomes they get from the process of meiosis. Because in meiosis, when a cell divides into two, the number of chromosomes becomes half. And it is because of the process of reproduction, because of the process of formation of the gametes, the meiosis takes place and the number of chromosomes becomes half, that is haploid. Because during fertilization, when the male and female gamete, they unite together, haploid and haploid, again they form a diploid zygote, and thus a new organism is formed. So, this is the reason that meiosis takes place only in the germ cells or the sex cells, where the number of chromosomes becomes half. And mitosis takes place in all the somatic cells and the stem cells, where the number of chromosomes remains the same. So, this is the major difference between the mitosis and meiosis. One more difference is there, students. Mitosis takes place in one step only, whereas meiosis takes place in two steps, where the first step, where the first process is meiosis, that is the number of chromosomes becomes half. So from one cell, two cells are produced, and the second step, these two cells, they form four cells where the number of chromosome remains the same. So the first step of meiosis is meiosis, where the number of chromosome becomes half. But in the second step, the mitosis takes place, where the two cells, they convert into four cells having the same number of chromosomes. So this is all about the differences between the mitosis and the meiosis. Now we'll start with the first type of cell division, that is mitosis. Now mitosis, as I told you, that it takes place in all the somatic cells as well as in the stem cells. It is completed in two steps. The first one is karyokinesis and the second one is cytokinesis. Now students, if you remember in the previous lecture, I had told you that biology is very, very easy because you have to understand the meaning of the terms. Now karyokinesis is nuclear division because karyokinesis is made up of two words, karyon and kinesis. Karyon means nucleus and kinesis means division. So the division of nucleus takes place and thus it is called as karyokinesis. Second one is cytokinesis, which is cytoplasmic division. So cyto has come from the cell or the cytoplasm and kinesis is the division. So the cytoplasm or whole of the cell divides into two and thus it is called as cytokinesis. You remember the word cytology? Cytology is the study of cells, right? So mitosis is also completed in two steps, karyokinesis and cytokinesis. Karyokinesis is the division of the nucleus, and that is the chromosomes which are present inside the nucleus, and cytokinesis, it is the division of the cell into two where the cytoplasm divides and two new daughter cells are formed. Now karyokinesis is divided into four parts: prophase, metaphase, anaphase and telophase. Okay, so mitosis is divided into karyokinesis and cytokinesis. Karyokinesis is further divided into four steps: prophase, metaphase, anaphase and telophase. Now students, here you have to just remember the picture, and the picture is so clear that if you remember the picture, you can easily write the explanation of that topic or that picture. Now the first one is prophase. Now as you can see, prophase, in this the thin chromatin threads, they start condensing, and due to the condensation they become short and thick and they start appearing like two chromosomes together. As you can see, they are K-shaped or X-shaped, right? So they have two pairs of sister chromatids which are joined at the point which is called as the centromere. Okay, in 9th standard we had studied the structure of the chromosomes, that a chromosome is made up of two sister chromatids. Each has two arms and they are joined at the center which is called as centromere. Okay, so in prophase, the chromatin threads, they convert into sister chromatids, and the nuclear membrane and nucleolus, they start disappearing, and the centriole is observed at the two opposite poles. You can see that star-like structure, that is the centriole. Now let's come to the metaphase. Now here in metaphase, the nuclear membrane, it disappears completely, and the thickening or the condensation of the chromosomes is completed, and the chromosomes are very clearly visible with the two sister chromatids. And one important characteristic of this metaphase is that all the chromosomes, they arrange in the center or in the equatorial plane of the cell. Okay, and as you can see, those linings which are called as spindle fibers, these spindle fibers, they start forming in the metaphase. Okay, then let's move on to the third phase, which is the anaphase. Now here in anaphase, you can see that the chromosomes have divided into their sister chromatids, or you can say they have split into half, right? But as one chromosome is made up of two sister chromatids and each sister chromatid moves to the opposite pole of the cell, thus the number of chromosomes remains the same. So here the centromere, it splits up and the sister chromatids, they separate and they are pulled towards the opposite directions. Now these separated sister chromatid or single sister chromatid is called as daughter chromosome. Okay, so thus see the number of chromosomes you see in the prophase, they were 4, and here in anaphase, when they have divided at the two different poles, they have separated at the two different poles, they are having the same number, and this is the main characteristic of mitosis, that the number of chromosome remains the same. Now in the telophase, after reaching at the opposite poles, these chromosomes or daughter chromosomes, they again decondense, that is, they again start becoming thin and thread-like structures which they were in the beginning in the prophase. Okay, now here slowly the nuclear membrane also can be seen, and thus two daughter cells or two daughter nuclei are formed at the end of the mitosis, and the spindle is completely disappeared. In this way, the karyokinesis is completed in these 4 steps, and from one nucleus, you can say 2 nucleus are formed, the division of nucleus takes place and the number of chromosomes remains the same. Now the karyokinesis, that is the division of the nucleus, is completed and the cytokinesis starts. What is cytokinesis? It is the division of the cytoplasm, right? Now actually there are 2 methods of cytokinesis. In animals, a notch is formed at the outer side of the cell and slowly it moves towards the center. Whereas in plant cells, a cell plate is formed in the center and it moves towards the outer side. Now here we are studying about the animals, right? So here a construction takes place at the outer side. Okay, a notch is formed. Here you can see on the screen cleavage furrow, or the notch is formed from the outer side and it starts moving towards the center, and thus gradually and slowly the whole cell gets divided into 2. Okay, so in mitosis, one single cell is divided into 2 daughter cells having the same number of chromosomes. The next is meiosis. Now meiosis has 2 phases, meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. In meiosis 1, it is actual meiosis where the number of chromosome becomes half, and in meiosis 2, it is actually mitosis where the number of chromosome remains the same. Okay. So now meiosis 1 also is divided into prophase 1, metaphase 1, anaphase 1 and telophase 1. Similarly, meiosis 2 is also divided into prophase 2, metaphase 2, anaphase 2 and telophase 2. Now, meiosis is not given in detail in your syllabus. Okay, you have to just study in short that meiosis is divided into two steps, meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. In meiosis 1, the recombination or crossing over takes place between the homologous chromosomes and they are divided into two haploid cells. Then in meiosis 2, the two haploid cells undergo mitosis and thus 4 cells are formed. Students, those who are interested in science and will be taking biology in their 11th standard, they will be studying this process in detail. It's a very, very interesting topic, meiosis, and in higher classes you have to study about them in detail. Here you have to just study superficially what is meiosis. So in meiosis, this takes place only in the germ cells or sex cells and the number of chromosomes becomes half because through this meiosis, the germ cells or the gametes are formed and they again unite during the fertilization and the number of chromosome again doubles up. Thus, meiosis is a very, very important process in the important characteristic of formation of gametes. So this was all about mitosis and meiosis. So students, with this we finish with lesson number 2, that is part 1 of the life processes in living organisms. This was really an interesting topic and I can assure you students that the second part of life processes in living organisms is going to be more interesting than this because there we are going to study about the reproduction in plants, in animals, in unicellular organisms as well as in multicellular organisms. So there we are also going to study about our body, about the male and female human reproductive system. So students, in the next science lecture, we are going to discuss the textual exercise. Please find out the answers. All the answers of the textual exercise is given in the textbook itself. So please keep completing your notebooks. At the same time, please keep completing your journals also. Okay students, take care, stay home, stay safe. Thank you.